versus reproductive hyphae. Okay, you don't see any spores here, so we know that this is going to be a vegetative hyphae. It's growing. Over here, they're in the reproductive stage. Okay, you're going to see the spores. The spores are obviously going to be above ground so that they can travel and land somewhere, and then they can germinate. What's the substrate? The substrate is going to be what it's growing on, and that's going to be where it's getting its nutrients from. This is also showing you the process of fertilization, generating a fruiting body. So this would be like the sexual form of fungal reproduction. For spores, I think I always call them sexual spores. They can be asexual, but mostly what you need to know is they're involved in fungal reproduction. This is a really good picture. It's showing you hyphae with like a sporangium that contains a bunch of spores, and these are some spores that have already come off of them, come out of the sporangium, and they can go settle in on the ground and then germinate and form a growing, a vegetative fungus.
In this video, we'll be discussing the various methods used by fungi to reproduce. Fungi reproduce both sexually and asexually. First, we'll cover asexual reproduction methods that fungi use to reproduce. The principal structure of asexual reproduction is a fruiting body. This structure usually contains thousands of spores, all resulting from meiotic divisions in a single cell, and therefore are genetically identical. In some fungi, for example, Rhizopus or Redmold, is supposed to develop a structure.
Does the accent hard for you?
Yeah.
Do you think everybody in the healthcare field is going to be English speaking?
No.
No? What about, did I tell you about the patient I had that just said yes to everything?
No.
The guy had a patient, I went out there and tried to talk to him, like, so are you doing things? What's going on? She said yes to everything. Okay? Finally, I was just like, are you mad? She said yes. Like, okay. It was a total waste of time. But I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to have to learn to understand people with accents. That's why I do think it's actually good. I've had students come up to me that say universities shouldn't hire non-native speaking English people. I'm like, okay, that's racist. It's like discriminatory. And in the field, you're gonna encounter people with an accent. So you don't just shut down and go, oh, I don't care if you die. I don't understand what you're saying. Okay? You have to learn to listen to it. Okay, that's why I think it's really, really good. That's why I like showing videos of people that have accents. I think it's a good thing for you guys, and you need to be able to not tune it out and to force yourself to pay attention and to figure out what they're saying.
Called sporangium. The spores are called sporangiospoor.
He's Scottish or
In this
Irish.
video,
I was
we'll
born
be
in
discussing
Stanford,
the
both
various
those places.
methods used
And
by
the accent
fungi
was
to
hard.
reproduce. Fungi reproduce both sexually and asexually. First, we'll cover asexual reproduction methods that fungi use to reproduce. The principal structure of asexual reproduction is a fruiting body. This structure usually contains thousands of spores, all resulting from meiotic divisions in a single cell, and therefore are genetically identical. In some fungi, for example Rhizopus or Redmold, the spores develop in a structure called sporangium. The spores are called sporangiospores. In other fungi, the spores develop on sportive structures called kinidiospores, and the spores are called conidia, from the Greek kinidios, meaning dust. An example of fungi that uses this method is penicillium. Some methods of reproduction do not involve a fruiting body. For example, spores may form by fermentation of alga. This process yields what are known as aphrospores, which comes from the Greek stem aphro, which means joint. An example of this is Tenecrius, which is the fungi that causes apple fruit. The last form of asexual reproduction is budding. In this case, the cell becomes swollen at one edge, and a new cell called a blastospore, or a bud, develops from the parent cell and breaks free. Yeast is the type of fungi that uses this method. Fungi also produce spores by a sexual process. Cells of two opposite mated types come together and fuse. A fusion of the nuclei follows, resulting in a mixture of chromosomes and a temporary diploid condition occurs. Eventually, the chromosome number is halved and the cell returns to its haploid state. Variations in the methods of sexual reproduction are used in classification of fungi. The fungi are classified into groups based mainly on the type of sexual spore that they produce. In yeast, asexual and sexual reproduction alternate. In sexual reproduction, haploid cells fuse to form a zygote. In zygomycetes, which are terrestrial fungi with aseptic hyphae, mating of hyphae results in the formation of zygospores. Ascomycetes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Does the fruiting body happen with both asexual and asexual?
No, fruiting body is going to be a product of sexual. So sexual has to occur to form a fruiting body. But like, when something forms a fruiting body, it then may, it's like a cycle.
But it kind of is kind of asexual.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what are you trying to say about that?
Okay, no, what can end up happening is that a fruiting body is typically going to be formed from sexual. Okay? It's going to usually be diffusion. And that's going to form a fruiting body. It's usually got like a significant upper. Then from this though, once you've generated a fruiting body, this typically is going to produce offspring via asexual. So, but I mean, it does kind of like, what comes first? Okay, but this usually takes a lot of energy, stuff like that, and it's usually the product of sexual, and then it itself, oftentimes, it usually goes in cycles. So usually when something is sexual, then the next cycle is going to be asexual. But it's going to depend on the climate as well, too. If you get like a lot of rain, you're typically going to favor asexual. Yeah, it's raining for yours. Good? Understand? Alright. So again, what am I going to ask you about all this? I'm not going to go into all of the details. I want you to know the basics. I do want you to know that they can alternate, that they can go kind of both ways. It's going to depend on the environment. I put this together really quickly, and I never like cropped it, but all I did was just took like a screenshot on my computer. But basically, this is going to be what? What process? What does it say?
Sporulation.
This is sporulation. Okay, remember with bacteria? So this is sporulation. Over here is reproduction. So I just kind of put this together for you guys so you can see like the differences. This is going to be bacteria making endospores, and this is going to be spore formation with funguses as a form of reproduction. Okay? So that's why I put this on here, so you can really see them together, but note that they are significantly different. Fungal ecology. Okay. They typically survive and prosper in nearly all environments on Earth. They can live in water, they can live on land. They're usually associated with high acidity, okay? Which is one of the reasons why the vagina is an acidic environment. A lot of dairy products are slightly acidic, things of that nature. They grow below freezing temperatures of water, and they can withstand cooler temperatures of bacteria. They require low nutrients to grow. They really don't need that much nutrients. In the lab, they will grow and develop a nutrient from media. They can be, yeast can be kind of finicky in the lab. It'll grow if it wants to, and then sometimes it just won't want to grow. So it does have, this is making it sound like it's incredibly range. It has this dynamic range, which if you take all of the individual species, it does. But it usually, certain species thrive in certain environments, and it can't stray too far from those environments. And usually it's going to prefer an acidic environment. Okay? Which is one of the reasons why if somebody has like a yeast infection, you can detect that by growing it on media and seeing that it's going to generate more of a lower pH. And you can use media that has a color indicator on it, so it'll change colors. Okay, so all you do is take sample, you gotta purify that sample, and then you're gonna put it on a plate, and then the next day you look at it and the plate will be yellow. Okay, they put it a red plate, and then the plate will turn yellow, which means it's acidic. And then you're okay, it's probably gonna be a fungal infection. That's what's wrong with the person. It's not a bacterial infection. They're going to need antifungal, not a UTI medication. You understand? Okay. All right. Grow below freezing temperatures of water, cool temperatures of bacteria, require low nutrients, yada, yada, yada. Oh, yeah. Some can obtain nutrients just from the air that you breathe and really, really small, not to breathe, environment. They can just get nutrients from the environment and take that in. Okay. So this is supposed to be a fungus growing on a tomato. So what would be the substrate? The tomato. This we're supposed to be zooming in and you're seeing individual hyphae, okay? Which is going to be what makes this mold look hairy. Fungal oxygen requirements, most are aerobes, a few of them are going to be anaerobes. Some species, including yeast, are facultative. What does it mean? It means they can kind of go both ways, but they usually prefer an anaerobic environment, which is going to be void of oxygen. Classification. The classifications are really diverse. I definitely want you to know penicillin because sorry, I'm going to go back to it. I'm just going to see what's coming up so I can tell you guys. Okay. So classifications. You should know that there's, I don't believe I'm not going to touch over all the names, but what you do need to know is they're not going to be grouped all the same. You have a classification of funguses, and then beneath that we have, again, subcategories, as we've had for all of the microorganisms. So, Zygomicata, that's going to end up having about 1,000 different types of species. I believe it's one of the largest categories. Some of them can be parasitic. Some of them are going to be produced asexually or sexually. Let's see here. Again, it's going over asexual versus sexual. I do want you to know this category. MYCO, that means fungus. So that's kind of a nice clue for you. Whenever you see that MYCO, that's like a medical, what would you say, like prefix or something like that. That means fungus. This is going to include penicillin. It's going to be the mold that we can make penicillin from. They also can have different types of spore formation. They can reproduce through convidiospores and I believe sporangiums as well. Most of them are going to be the funguses that can spoil food that you're familiar with. Some can infect plants. Obviously, they can spoil food. They can typically infect plants and humans. And then we have different versions that are going to be beneficial. For example, those that are contribute to penicillin, and those that are involved with Saccharomyces, which is going to be like baker's yeast that everyone's really familiar with. That's going to be involved in the fermentation of wine. This is going to be, the fruiting body is what you see. That's typically going to be what's above ground. Asexual versus sexual reproduction. Again, I'm not going to touch you over these pictures because I feel like they're hard to differentiate. Take a look at them. A lot of times it'll help you organize the information for you so you can understand it a little bit better, but I don't have these types of pictures on your exam. So, over into this category. What I wanted you to know about over here, there's a number of different species, okay, but they basically all belong to the same genus, even though there's many, many different species. It's really not that diverse because they're all like still somewhat related. Mushrooms are going to be in this category. Those are going to be, again, some of the fruiting bodies. They can affect humans in multiple different ways. This is going to be, they have significant roles in decomposing, so that's going to be recycling of nutrients. This is going to be the category of hallucinogenic mushrooms. Some can even be, they can actually infect plants, and they can cause severe damage when it comes to agriculture and things of that nature. So in red, I've kind of folded what I really want you to fold in the groups, so make sure you know those. This is showing you the living bodies. Different sexual lifestyle cycle that we're talking about. This would be the hallucinogenic mushrooms. I really don't make a lot of questions about this, but a lot of times students are interested in it, so you can read about it and check this out. Classification continues. We're going to have your tuberomyosites. They're going to be heterogeneous collection of funguses with, we don't really know their sexual stages. Most of them belong to the division of Ascomycota, and that's going to be based on their RNA analysis. We don't really know that much about these guys. Lichens are relatively, they're kind of unusual. They're more of like a community that's kind of fungal and bacteria together, and then you're going to have a little bit of algae. So I always kind of thought of it as almost like a biofilm. It's not a biofilm, but what it is it's basically going to be funguses, algae, and then different types of bacteria that can live together. Some of them are going to be able to utilize the process of photosynthesis. Usually they're also going to have different stages of growth, where things towards the top will be like more photosynthetic, things towards the bottom will be like decomposers. So it's basically like a community. Okay, partnership between fungi, photosynthetic microbes. The fungus provides nutrients, water, and of course protection. Photosynthetic microbes are going to provide the carbohydrates and oxygen. That's going to be the process of photosynthesis because it's gonna take in CO2